how you know about the new federal state of China.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, I was at AmFest last year and I bumped into you guys, but I didn't have much opportunity to speak with you. Then, because I live in Silicon Valley, about an hour south of San Francisco, I was able to attend APEC. And so I saw you guys there, and that's where I got to know you guys a lot more too. And I was really excited to see you guys there because, quite frankly, I do not like the CCP at all. I do not support brutal dictatorships.
So what do you think our action at APEC at that time?
I really appreciate there were a lot of demonstrators that were protesting against President Xi coming into town and meeting with President Biden. I really hated the fact that in order for the city of San Francisco, which quite frankly has become a hot mess, they have to clean the city up for a dictator from a communist nation before they even consider what the people, the good people of San Francisco are dealing with. It's really sad, quite frankly.
Yeah, that would usually happen in China within the communist China, and this is also the first time I see that's all happening nowadays in America. So it seems that indeed there are more and more evidence that the CCP is infiltrating America, not only America, actually around the world. And do you want to give us some evidence or all the things you see how the CCP is infiltrating?
Yeah, from what I remember, I do understand that the CCP are running secret police departments here in America to target Chinese citizens and Chinese nationals. It's quite frightening because in America, it's about protecting Americans, and we don't need a foreign government, especially from a communist nation, coming in and having secret police going and harassing American Chinese people. That's not acceptable at all.
The biggest challenge, I'll start there, has been the fact that we are up against these tyrannical globalist entities that have been co-opted by communists in their corporate boardrooms to stifle the liberties of competitors. The tyrants in our society are trying to stifle your ability to experience liberty, which makes competition very hard, and yet we persist. For a decade, we've watched company after company turn against us and our values. We've watched companies infringe upon our liberties. We've watched them try to create a social credit score here in the United States with businesses, and we're done with it.
Target and Bud Light, I know both companies have big presence in communist China. I mean, they import product made of slave labor, and now what's most concerning is not the CCP's infiltration in this country through cheap product, but ideology.
Yes.
And that's why over the campuses from East Coast to West Coast, we see the anti-Semitism and students who prefer socialism or communism over capitalism, and especially in the private sector. So how are you guys fighting back against the CCP style woke culture?
We're trying to shift the monetary supply and shift the profit centers. So if we can move the profit centers back to the values of we the people, we will win. We are in an economic war, not just a political one. You can vote in the United States every 2 and 4 years, and so we claim we're a democracy. The corporate boardrooms from some of the largest companies that we're all familiar with by name have been co-opted by communists. They have placed these Marxists on the boards of these companies to hijack away the prioritization of the consumer and the shareholder. If you want to live in a free society, you have to protect the freedom of the transaction. If you look at communist cultures around the world for the last 150 years, since communism has really originated, they have all one thing in common. The communist authoritarians go after your ability to transact. They will try to silence you and cancel your bank account, stifle your economic liberty if you disagree with the regime in power. The only way to fight that is by exercising your financial freedom, removing the profit centers from the woke tyrants, and taking back your sovereignty as an individual consumer.
I want you to speak a few words to our audiences who are not able to be here physically and they're residing in China. They're fighting every day against the censorship and communist ideology. What would be your message to them?
I would say continue fighting, continue prioritizing the freedoms to the greatest degree that you can. Push back when you have the ability to against the authoritarianism. Recognize that you're inspiring the world. Your boldness and courage gives us boldness and courage to fight. We have it easier here in the United States, but there are warning signs about our country becoming more and more communist and authoritarian. The more that you speak up and exercise your ability to the degree that you can, you give me purpose every day and doing the same here. So I would encourage you that the world is watching and your fight gives gives us inspiration to keep fighting.
Hey, Wendy, thank you so much for stopping by. I know you're a Taiwanese American patriot and you love Taiwan and you love America. And so tell us why you're running. And I know you're fighting for freedom for your children and their future generations. So tell us about your work.
Currently, I am the Central Committee person for the Assembly District 20 in California. That is in East Bay in Alameda County. And, you know, everybody know where Eric Swalwell is.
Eric Swalwell, our audience are so familiar. You're fighting for America's independence from the CCP's infiltration.
I'm pushing back from totalitarianism. Basically, right now, I feel that the ruling class supremacists are consolidating power and they're centralizing control, starting at a local level and basically pushing down all these medical mandates for the COVID jabs. If it's this hard for me right now, how much more difficult will it be for my children? I don't want to hand them a society that here, sorry kids, here is in high crime, no freedom, and high taxes, and high regulation, high inflation, and high debt. Good luck, kids. No, not under my watch. We believe that God is the supreme leader, and we need to obey it by his rules in the Constitution, and that's what we need to follow. And I just want to set a good example for my children. So this is the reason why I'm fighting.
The communist China during the Cultural Revolution, now you're witnessing their similar cultural war against the traditional value in this country. So are you worried about the pro-communist and woke culture is going to destroy the future generation in this country?
It is already beginning, and that's the reason why I'm fighting, and fighting with a lot of parents right now, or a lot of people who are patriotic, to stand up. Because what happened is that they're demoralizing us on a purpose. Because if you take moral value out of the society, that anything goes. And I can see that already. And it's Taiwan, actually, my parents fought hard.
Yes.
They lived under 60 years of one-party rule.
Yes.
And 38 years of martial law. So first 13 years of my life was under those rules. And they fought. So you know what? I need to do the same for my children right now. Ruling class will always want to have more control, more power. It's up to we the people to say no.
You heard about the NFSC and our movement. In fact, we have many members in Taiwan. So tell us, when you first heard about a group of Chinese people who are willing to stand up to the CCP and really very openly confront the Chinese Communist Party in Beijing, how does that make you feel?
I feel very comforted because being a Taiwanese, right, it's a kind of beacon for the Chinese democracy. And I'm really thankful that there are Chinese people willing to stand up. And then they're sacrificing everything. And I just want to thank you and the Miles School so much for standing up for the Chinese people and not afraid of losing everything. We're making a good example for future generations.
Recently, we just got back from Africa, Kenya, Africa, after 4 years. And every country that I go to, I see Chinese roads, I see Chinese railways, Chinese infrastructure. And China is funding, and they are using their money to sway the politics of the countries. China is causing countries to become indebted to them. And then China wants them to convert to their currency. Many times the governments, because they owe China so much money, they cannot make a decision that is based upon the welfare of the people. But they must bow down to Xi Jinping's policy because he has the money in that country. We, as Americans, have been influenced by the Communist Party of China, not by the Chinese people. We are buying cheap products, very inexpensive products. So we have been influenced because our American dollars are going to fund Xi Jinping's regime. We are funding the CCP through American dollars. Big supermarket chains are buying all kinds of products from China because they are very cheap, very inexpensive to buy, not realizing that many of these products are made by slave labor. We have not been educated as to the Communist Party's regime. School kids, I grew up not understanding the ideology behind Communist Party. So I've had to learn this on my own by traveling.
And it's even worse when the app like TikTok is, controlled by the CCP, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're brainwashing our younger generation. It's a propaganda tool, right? And the stuff that they let our younger generation see in the Western world is just, brainwashing, right? A form of brainwashing.
It is more than brainwashing.
Yeah.
It's purposeful destruction of the mind,
100%.
right? Because brainwashing, you can tell people to do what you want, you can control people, but this is more than that. It's more than just telling someone what to do. It's actually destroying their ability to have intellectual thoughts. And so I created an account, and I made the account. I generated it so that I was, when I picked my age, 10 years old. It took me 5 minutes of scrolling to find a girl in a bikini dancing. But if you go to the CCP, the TikTok Chinese version, you're filled with people who are farming, people who are scientists, people who are working hard and serving their country, military. You don't get that on TikTok in America. Because the Chinese government is purposefully strengthening their own people while weakening ours, and we're allowing it to happen. Just because Byte was sold a little bit ago to another company in America doesn't mean that the Chinese government still doesn't have their hands on the company in America that's hosting the data.
100%. And what do you think needs to be done right now regarding TikTok and all those other Chinese spy?
Frankly, get rid of all social media, everything altogether. They're all terrible. Oh man, I'm losing my voice. I've been speaking so much. It's only day 2. No, social media as a whole is one of the biggest destructive factors in our society today. I'm seeing it with everything because what used to be, I'll give dating as an example, right? We're 22. It's near impossible to find a woman because what used to be you competing against all the men in your local area for the girl is now you competing against everybody and their highlight reel on social media for the girl. So social media as a whole has destroyed people's ability to form intellectual thought, form meaningful relationships, and grow as humans.
You can see exactly why the CCP wants to use us as a human shield. And the interesting part, the suspicious part, is they were never elected. They should not be able to represent the Chinese people. And now, despite being able to take over China as a whole and import their vicious, evil, anti-humanitarian values onto the Chinese people, they're trying to do it to America as well. You can see it on many fronts, the economic front, the political front, even the social front, influencing us and the younger generation through TikTok and stuff. What are some issues that you think should be brought up that can be corresponding to the roots of the Chinese Communist Party, and we should be aware on American soil?
What happens in China is China, but here in America, Winnie the Pooh, you're not touching our country, okay? Xi Jinping, you're not coming over here. The amount of farmland that's bought up, the amount of industrial complexes that are owned by the Chinese Communist Party and associates of the CCP is very concerning. You see how they're close to military bases. You see how they're close to things important with U.S. intelligence, education systems. I mean, the CCP has had a very large impact in the U.S. education systems. Why are they doing that? I think it could be simply because they, want to start spreading their message over here. Maybe they want to expand their regime, or they simply believe that their stronghold in China is or has something to do with their stronghold here. I mean, you look at the amount of youth on TikTok. The youth does not understand that their data is being stolen, it's being tracked by the CCP. I mean, listen, after doing this interview, I'll never be able to step foot in China probably, and that's A-okay for the meantime. But once Winnie the Pooh is out and the Chinese people can be freed and liberated from the CCP, as they all want, we all know that nobody likes the CCP in China. It's very important that us Americans and us on the home front in the USA really make sure that the CCP does not impede on our lifestyle, does not dictate the way we live, does not steal our data, and has no influence on how we live here, because they shouldn't.
And we should be defending our core American values, not just American, but humanitarian.
Absolutely.
For humans, what it means to love, what it means to have a life, what it means to reach a greater purpose. These are values that have been under attack by the CCP directly because they don't want us to have that. They want us to follow blindly in a globalist agenda under the totalitarian rule of the CCP.
There are people all over the world are struggling under dictatorships and regimes. It's all in different forms. Here in the United States, we're dealing with our own struggle. We have people that want to be like Mr. Winnie the Pooh. But you know what? Like I said at the beginning, 我爱中国人. The people of America are with you. We're aware of what's going on, and we got your back. And I'm telling you, here on the American home front, we will spread the message about the dictatorship and the Chinese Communist Party and how terrible it is. But we are with you. Keep fighting there, and we'll do our part fighting here. And hopefully, we'll all be able to go visit China together. I'd love to get there someday. It's a beautiful nation.